Hello folks, and welcome to ParentTaughtDrivingCourse.com. Okay, so today's lesson we're going to talk a little bit about right and left hand turns, staying in your lane, some of the hazards in residential areas, specifically in neighborhoods. This lesson is typically going to take place after you have spent some time with your student in a parking lot setting. The idea here is to work a little bit on right and left hand turns, how to execute right and left hand turns, acceleration, braking, slowing down, approaching stop signs, and obviously looking out for potential hazards in residential areas, such as kiddos running in the neighborhood or darting out in the middle of the road, pedestrians, joggers, bicyclists, cars backing out of their driveway. So if you are comfortable after the initial lesson that took place in the parking lot, then this would be a good starting point for the second lesson. Again, you'll want to talk a little bit about some of the hazards and dangers, what to look out for, specifically kiddos. You'll want to note the fact that most residential areas and neighborhoods, specifically neighborhood roads, if you notice, they're not going to have lines separating oncoming traffic. It's understood that they're two-way roads unless otherwise posted. Pets is something else you're going to have to look out for. So we'll get started with the lesson here. Keep in mind, again, you want to make sure your student does have their permit. Buses, there goes a bus right there. That's another thing that you're going to have to look out for when you're driving in residential areas. Buses, stop buses, loading and unloading kiddos, those types of things. Anytime a bus stops and has their stop sign out, you want to make sure that you do stop, whether you're behind them or in front of them. And by that I mean, if you're coming in the opposite direction or you're driving behind them, you're going to need to stop. And of course, you're going to want to make sure you're careful with kiddos being dropped off or picked up. So in terms of the lesson, again, what we're going to do today is we're going to focus a little bit on right and left hand turns, and also we're going to talk a bit about that's another thing, construction. A lot of stuff going on in residential areas. We're going to talk a little bit about tracking, and by that again I mean staying in your lane. You want to make sure that you stay on your side of the road to avoid any collisions or any potential problems. So once we go through the pre-drive task, which is something that you're going to want to do before every lesson, you'll get in the vehicle, make sure your student does have their learner's permit. You want to make sure that they go through the pre-drive task checklist, seat belts, anything that you feel that you need to discuss prior to going to moving forward. So again, based on their previous lesson, you'll want to evaluate, make sure that you have an open dialogue, talk to your student about what they need to work on, what they need to focus on, what they did right, where they're lacking, and how to correct any issues or problems that might have occurred. So we'll go ahead and start by putting our left blinker on. Anytime that you're merging into traffic, it doesn't matter if you're in a residential area or you're trying to get into a throughway, a regular thoroughfare, you want to make sure that anytime there's a change in direction, be it lateral or again right, left, whatever the case may be, you want to make sure you use your blinker on, or use your blinker. So right now I'm going to put my left blinker on. I'm going to look over my left shoulder. You're going to want to make sure again that you check your mirrors. I'm going to put my foot on the brake, put the vehicle in drive. Okay, I'm going to look over my left shoulder. It's clear, so I'm going to go ahead and gradually accelerate through. Check my rear view again, take my blinker off, and off we go. So we're going to work on right and left hand turns. Now again, you want to make sure that you let your student know way in advance when they need to make a turn or a specific maneuver. So I'm going to put my left blinker on. Remember, you want to make sure you put your blinker on way ahead of time, at least 100 feet in advance. I'm going to cover my brake. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to make a left-hand turn. Now notice my approach. I'm going to stop. There's nobody behind me. So I'm going to go ahead and stop. One of the things about making this left-hand turn is that you want to make sure that you don't turn too soon. If you turn too soon, then you're going to end up on the you're going to end up in oncoming traffic. So what you do is you pull up about halfway through the intersection, halfway through the street, and then you're going to make your left-hand turn. Now, obviously, you don't want to make a stop unless there's oncoming traffic. Hand over hand, and you accelerate through the turn. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We have a stop sign up ahead, but here's what's going to happen if I turn too soon. I'm going to put my left blinker on. Again, I'm going to stop. So anytime you approach a stop sign, you want to make sure that you're checking your mirrors. Once again, keep an eye out for cars backing out of the driveway. Make sure you stop behind the stop line. Once you make a complete stop, keep in mind that you're going to feel a slight tug when you stop. Make sure that the wheels are no longer in motion. As long as you can see left and right, you can go ahead and proceed, and obviously as long as it's clear. So you accelerate gradually, make your left-hand turn, start making it now. All right, so you've made the left-hand turn, you accelerate through. You notice all of the recycle bins on the side of the road. Those are things that you have to look out for. Parked cars, vehicles backing out of their driveway, again, pedestrians, those types of things. So when I make this next left, you're going to notice that I'm going to turn too soon and therefore end up on the inside or the left side of the road. See, this is what you don't want to do. Turn too soon. Now, this is a little cul-de-sac. Always a good idea to work with your student in these cul-de-sacs. Gives them some practice in terms of their hand over hand, those types of things. So not a bad idea. We've got a stop sign right here. We're going to go ahead and make another left-hand turn. Make sure you come to a complete stop. Slow down. You want to make sure you stop parallel to the stop sign. Now, my visibility here, although you guys can't tell, is obstructed. There are vehicles to my right and to my left. I can't see if there's traffic coming through, so I'm going to inch up, and I'm going to make another stop. Make a complete stop. I've got my left blinker on. I'm good to go. And accelerate and make your left-hand turn. So here's another left turn coming up. Got my blinker on. Check my mirrors. Watch your speed. In a residential area or neighborhood, rather, you want to keep your speed to under 20 miles an hour. Most of the time, you'll have posted speed limit signs that indicate the actual speed, but if there isn't one, then you want to keep between 15 and 20. Now, here I'm going to turn right. I'm going to put my right blinker on. One of the things that you have to factor in when you're turning right is that, again, if you turn too sharp or too soon, or you're too close to the curb, what will happen is this. You're going to end up going over the curb, right? And then ultimately what happens is you swing wide. So lane positioning is really, really important when you're approaching these turns, whether it's right or left. If you're too close to the right or to the curb when you're making a right turn, you're going to jump over the curb just like I did. If you're too wide or too far to the left, then you have to deal with oncoming traffic. You don't want to get in their lane. So we're going to make another right-hand turn. This is a stop sign, so we'll approach it with caution. You want to check your mirrors, start to slow down, cover your brake. Slower, slower, slower. Stop before the stop line. As long as it's clear, you can make your turn. Once again, hands at 9 and 3, hand over hand to the right. Now, here's the deal with this right turn. If you turn too soon, again, you're going to jump the curb, right? So what you want to go ahead and do is you want to make sure that you position the vehicle so that you don't jump the curb or swing wide, which is what I'm doing here. You notice how I went wide? I went into the opposite flow of traffic. So lane positioning, again, very important. Now, this right turn, we're going to go ahead and make this correctly so that you have an idea. Again, cover your brakes, slow down, blinkers on, check your mirrors. And right around here. Now, there's a bit of a hazard because you have a mail truck delivering mail, which means that now you've got to ride basically in between both lanes. Again, those are things that you have to account for when you're driving in residential areas. So we're going to make another right-hand turn. Got my right blinker on. We're going to make a complete stop. Cover your brakes, slow down. Make sure you stop at the stop sign or behind the stop line. The road is clear, so you make your right-hand turn. You accelerate gradually through the turn. And you don't want to goose it either, because if you give it too much gas, then you end up losing control of the vehicle. You could end up jumping the curb on the right-hand side or driving into somebody's living room. So be cognizant of that. Now, as we approach a stop sign, this time we're going to make a left. Left blinkers on. Approach a stop sign, check your rear view, slow down. Make sure you stop behind the stop sign or parallel to it and behind the stop line. No traffic, you're good to go. Look right, look left, look right, look left. Accelerate through your turn. Or out of the turn, gradually accelerate out of the turn, accelerate into the turn, but also out of the turn. And again, you notice these vehicles that are parked on the curb, on the side of the street here. It's important that you're aware of that, because if you have oncoming traffic, then at that point you have to communicate with the other driver and either allow them to go through or they'll allow you to go through. But that's where communication is key, and it's so important to communicate with your other drivers, which is why you need to make sure you put your blinker on ahead of time and that you do make eye contact in situations where you have to allow maybe another vehicle to go or yield the right of way in a situation where you wouldn't under normal circumstances. You also have to account for any construction crews, landscapers, those types of things in these neighborhoods. Notice I'm right in the middle of the street, so if there was an oncoming vehicle, we would have to determine, do I go or do you go? Why? Because there are parked vehicles on the side of the road. So you approach a stop, we're going to make a left, make sure you make a complete stop, check for traffic, good to go, hand over hand, accelerate through your turn. And that's the short of it, folks. So today's lesson, again, driving in a neighborhood, working on right turns, working on left turns, working on lane positioning, making sure that you're not on the wrong side of the road, making sure that you're aware of your surroundings. You see the folks ahead of us, in front of us, that are getting into their vehicle. Those are all things that you have to account for. We're going to make a left, so I've got my left blinker on, cover my brakes, slow down, turn hand over hand, and then accelerate out of the turn. So again, be aware of pedestrians, runners, kiddos, pets, loose pets, folks backing out of their driveway, those types of things. Now, when you get ready to drive on roads where there's a little bit heavier traffic, in other words, outside of a residential area, you'll want to make sure that you talk a bit about how you're going to exit the neighborhood, or the residential area. Exit the neighborhood into the residential area. So again, you want to make a complete stop, accelerate through your turn, and you are good to go. Now, if you notice on that last stop, I didn't stop before the stop sign, and part of that is because I was distracted by my lecturing. Those are some of the things that you have to account for, and you want to make sure that you talk to your student about that, because physically driving a vehicle is not going to be a difficult thing. They're gonna pick that up. The hardest thing for me as an instructor, as an educator, to get students to understand is the mental part of driving, but being aware of your surroundings, paying attention to what you're doing. Driving should always be your first, or should be your priority when you're behind the wheel of a vehicle. Oftentimes what happens is we get focused on other things, be it, an argument you had with someone at school or at work, or, you're having a bad day, you're not feeling well, you're a bit ill, under the weather, you didn't get enough sleep. So safe driving is not just about physically being able to operate a motor vehicle. It's a big part of driving is going to be mental and physical. In other words, are you physically fit and mentally fit to drive a vehicle? Are you ready? Are you well rested? Are you fatigued? Have you eaten? Have you not eaten? Those types of things. And it sounds a bit dumb, have you eaten? Have you not eaten? But if you're irritable and you haven't had anything to eat and you're irritable, you're going to be short-tempered, obviously less tolerant. Watch out for this vehicle here. I'm going to make my right-hand turn, accelerate through my turn, and we are going to come to a stop. Now, as you're pulling in to your stop, make sure that you, again, are aware of your surroundings. You'll slow down, you'll come to a complete stop, make sure you put the vehicle in park. And once you get out of the vehicle, make sure that or before you get out of the vehicle, make sure that you're aware of any traffic around you. You notice those two cars that pulled up in front of us or past us. Before you open your door, make sure you look over your shoulder to make sure there are no cars coming through. Once you get done, you do your post-drive task. Walk around the vehicle, make sure that nobody's, that you didn't leave anybody in the car. But going back to the mental part of driving, it is important that you talk to your student about being attentive and understanding the fact that there are drivers on the road who are tired or inattentive, they're upset, whatever the case may be. There are many, many variables to factor in. We have no control over anybody else's actions, and we shouldn't take their actions personally. So being mentally fit is also a big factor. All right, folks, thanks a bunch. Again, ParentTaughtDrivingCourse.com. Have a wonderful day.